what do we do to get people affordable health care? And that's one of the things we can talk about with U.S. Senator John Kennedy, who's joining us now on the live line. Good morning, Senator Kennedy. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
Same to you, Dave. Thanks for having me, man.
Glad that you're here. Let's start there. I was going to talk to you about immigration first, but since we're kind of transitioning here, let's start there because I know that that has been kind of the topic of the day there on the Hill, particularly for the Senate, talking about the future of the Affordable Care Act, health care subsidies, and what is the solution to giving Americans access to affordable health care, if not keeping these subsidies in place for the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare?
Well, if I were king for a day, I'm not, and I don't aspire to be. Here's what I would do to help the 24 million people who get their health care through the exchanges, which, of course, is a small percentage of Americans, but nonetheless important. To reduce the cost of health care, we could pass a bill requiring what's called site neutrality, which means you pay the same price for a procedure in the hospital as you do in an outpatient clinic. Right now, we pay more if you get the service in a hospital. That makes absolutely no difference. Number two, the subsidies that you talk about right now, that we have right now, are paid directly by the federal government to the insurance companies. There's an enormous amount of fraud, just enormous amount of fraud in the billions. I would change the law to provide that the money goes from the federal government to the patient, to the people, and they get to decide which insurance program they want to buy, not just sending the money to the insurance companies. Those would be two of the things that I would do almost immediately. The third thing I would do is we have an executive order that provides this, but hospitals aren't complying. Hospitals need to post their prices so people can shop around. They're required to do it, but a lot of hospitals don't comply.
Yeah, that's always a huge mystery. You never know when you're going in for a medical procedure or a hospitalization or whatever. You have no idea what it's going to cost you in the end, whether you have insurance or not, whether you have Medicare or Medicaid or not, whether you have whatever your situation. You really do have no idea what it's going to cost. You just have to wait for that bill and then, get pie-eyed because it's always much larger than you ever thought it could be.
Well, if you went into Costco tomorrow and you bought a bunch of stuff and you went to check out, and they said, okay, that's great. We're not going to tell you what you got to pay. We'll tell you in about 6 weeks. But you can take the stuff home. But if you don't pay in 6 weeks, whatever we tell you, we're going to bankrupt you. Nobody would buy anything from Costco, but that's how we do health care. Doesn't make any sense.
Is there any model you like for universal health care or providing public health care to all Americans?
Well, we have almost universal health care now. Most people get their health care through their employer. We have a large portion of people who get their health care through Medicaid if their income is low enough, and we have a large portion of people who get their health care through Medicare, the elderly. There's a group, I think it's 10 to maybe 15%, who don't fall into any of those three groups, that were allowed under Obamacare to go onto an exchange and buy insurance with the federal government's help. And we were told if we would do that health insurance for those 24 million people would be cheaper and it would be more accessible. And it's been neither. We were told it would make our lives better. It's made our lives worse. And it's now time to fix the exchanges for those 24 million people. For those 24 million people, we are spending $350 billion over a 10-year period. It's outrageous. I mean,
So what's the alternative? What do we do instead?
Just you can keep the exchanges, but you have to reform how we're delivering the care. Stop sending the money directly to the insurance company. Send it to people. Reform your billing practices. require transparency, get serious about the fraud. There is an enormous amount of fraud. GAO just came out with a report day before yesterday. There's an enormous amount of fraud in the billions of dollars that we know how to stop. We just have to pass legislation to do it.
We're talking.
I mean, we found people, dead people, who have signed up for these subsidies. I mean, it's just nobody's checking.
Talking with U.S. Senator John Kennedy. Let's shift topics now to the immigration crackdown we're seeing here in Louisiana, with U.S. Border Patrol sending some 250 agents to try and round up reportedly some 5,000 illegal immigrants in the region, which would be maybe between 5 and 10% of the reported illegal immigrants around here. Your thoughts on the coverage we've seen of this and the operation itself?
Under federal law, which is supreme under Article 6 of the Constitution, legal immigration is legal, and illegal immigration is illegal. Legally, we bring in 1 million of our world's neighbors every year. They're properly vetted, more than any other country. But we have a lot of folks during the last administration, between 8 and 12 million, who came in illegally, and we don't have the slightest idea of who they are. The last administration, federal administration, did not enforce federal law. The Trump administration is. And it sent in, I think, 250, 300 agents to New Orleans. Many of them are now in Baton Rouge to enforce federal law. They've arrested, I'm told, around 50 people in New Orleans. Among the most serious criminals, they arrested a guy named Jorge Vieira Serrano of Cuba, who was convicted of forcible rape and is in our country illegally. Ben Von To of Vietnam, he has a rap sheet as long as your arm. He was in our country illegally. Anthony Jose Soraya Gutierrez of Nicaragua, he's a member of the 18th Street Gang. He's in our country illegally. And we have arrested, those are three of the worst. And they will be arrested, have been arrested, and they will be deported. That's federal law. Some people don't like it, but if you don't like federal law, you should change it, not just not follow it.
There's been a lot of criticism of the tactics that the Border Patrol agents are using. The Associated Press put out a report that only a handful of the people detained were these actual worst of the worst criminals. Any response to those who have been critical of what they believe are overhanded tactics by Border Patrol and the Associated Press report that they're really not going after just the bad criminals? They're going after people who are here illegally without rap sheets.
No, I think that's true. I think when you're in our country illegally, you're violating federal law. It's a crime. Now, the agents are primarily looking for criminals. But if they come across someone who's not a criminal, who doesn't have a rap sheet, but he's in our country illegally, which is a violation of federal law, they're not just going to ignore them. And so I don't know where this started, where people said, oh, they're only going to arrest people who are really, really, really bad. Well, they're trying to get those folks, but they're also trying to enforce federal immigration law as well. And look, the agents are required to follow due process, including the standard of reasonable suspicion. If they don't, people are certainly entitled to file a 1983 action in court. But most of the frankly, Dave, most of the allegations that I've heard of federal agents violating the law are coming from people, local elected officials, who just believe that we ought to have open borders. And they're entitled to have that belief, but that's not federal law.
Senator John Kennedy is our guest for just a couple more minutes. He's got to run, and we do too. So let me ask you quickly. The government was shut down for the longest period ever earlier this year. Mm-hmm. There are fears that the stopgap measure that opened it up again will lead to another shutdown in January. Do you see the government shutting down again? And are conversations amongst you and your colleagues to prevent that from happening, you think, going to be successful?
I hope so. The choice to shut down government was from my Democratic colleagues. I voted 14 times to open it up. They voted 14 times to keep it shut down until they finally did. We have another deadline, January 30th. I can assure you I will vote to keep government open, but I can't tell you, Dave, how anybody else will vote, including my Democratic friends.
Senator Kennedy, we know your time is valuable and sure appreciate your sharing some of it with us here. Anything else you want to say before we let you run?
No, thanks, Dave. You're a damn good news director and reporter.
Well, I appreciate that.